Welcome to Mia Horror Stories. To make it easier on your eyes, this video plays against a black screen, so you can close your eyes, get comfortable, and let the story take over. But don't relax too much. The ending might just catch you off guard. Stay with me until the very last word. The first time it happened, I was already halfway out of sleep and convinced my phone had buzzed. Not the clean, polite vibration of a text, more like a trapped insect in a glass, that rapid stuttering against wood. My nightstand creaked once under the tiny tremor. The sound was so specific it pulled me up by the throat, not with fear exactly, more with irritation. Like when a smoke alarm chirps at 2:00 a.m., and you know you'll be the one on a chair with a broom handle, cursing. I blinked at the darkness. A smear of sodium streetlight pressed through the blinds. The air smelled faintly of dish soap from the kitchen and the sour warmth of the radiator. Somewhere below us, a car door thumped shut. In our bedroom, the only moving thing was the little red LED on the router across the hall, winking like it had an opinion. Then the vibration stopped. I lay still, listening for it to come back, because that's what your brain does with weirdness. It pokes it with a stick to see if it's still alive. "Eli," I whispered. A breath beside me shifted. Eli's voice was thick, the kind of half-syllable you make when you're trying to stay asleep and be a supportive partner at the same time. "Did you feel that, my phone?" Eli rolled onto his back with a sigh that made the mattress complain. The silhouette of his arm moved toward his side of the bed. "Your phone's on silent." I know. I reached blindly for it anyway, fingers sliding over the cool rectangle. The screen was dark. No notifications. No missed calls. The time glowed in pale numbers when I tapped. 12:07 a.m. Maybe the building did its usual settling. Maybe the radiator kicked. Maybe I'd dreamed it. That was the comfort of things being explainable. You could fold them away. I set the phone back, careful, as if it might buzz again out of spite. My gaze drifted to the window without me deciding to. It was a habit, like checking a rearview mirror even when you're not changing lanes. The blinds were down, slats tilted closed, but not perfectly. They never were. There was always that narrow gap near the pull cord where the streetlight could sneak in and paint a thin line across the wall. In that line, dust floated. Tiny, lazy spirals. Everything looked normal enough that my chest loosened a fraction. Then I heard it. Not a bang, not footsteps. A soft, brief sound that could have been a glove brushing fabric, a fingertip on painted wood, something sliding, stopping, sliding again. Outside the window, Eli's breathing steadied beside me, already drifting. I held my own breath and listened harder, which is another thing the brain does. It thinks concentration is control. Nothing. I was about to let it go when the sound came again, a little higher this time, like it had moved. A tiny scrape, a pause, and then, unmistakably, a faint click that made my stomach go tight. The pull cord for the blinds, its plastic toggle, tapped the window glass. It wasn't dramatic. It was stupidly small. It was the kind of noise you'd ignore if you were standing at the sink and the TV was on. But it wasn't supposed to move. I eased my hand off the phone and onto the edge of the mattress, preparing to sit up. Eli made a sleepy noise like a protest and turned his face into the pillow. "Eli," I said again, slightly louder. My voice sounded too bright in the dark, like it didn't belong here. "Wake up." "What?" he mumbled, more statement than question. "Do you hear that?" A pause. Eli's breathing hitched in that annoyed way. Then he lifted his head. "Hear what?" Another tap. Soft, the plastic toggle kissing glass. Eli went still. Not scared, not yet. Just attentive. "Okay," he said, voice clear now, the sleep falling away. "That's weird. I'm not imagining it. I didn't say you were." He pushed himself up on one elbow. His hair was crushed in a direction that made him look like a kid. The faint glow of the digital clock on the dresser outlined his cheekbone. We listened. There was a drafty hush in the room, the kind that comes from old window frames and winter being ambitious. The radiator hissed once, settling. Somewhere down the hall, one of our neighbors' pipes knocked. Then scrape, tap. Eli slid out of bed in one smooth motion that told me he'd done this before. In other apartments, other nights, responding to a mysterious sound with the stubborn confidence of someone who believes problems are mostly physical. "Probably the cords hitting because of a draft," he whispered, as if sound carried farther at night. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. That explanation fit neatly. Draft equals movement. Movement equals tap. The universe still made sense. Eli padded across the hardwood, bare feet silent, except for a faint squeak near the doorway where a board always complained. He stopped at the window. I stayed in bed, sitting up, sheet pulled to my chest, because that was my private flaw. I hated being the first one to check. I'd always been that way. Even as a kid, I'd send my brother to see what the noise downstairs was, then pretend I didn't care. Eli reached toward the blinds. "Don't," I said too quickly. He paused, hand hovering. "Why?" "I don't know, just wait." Another tap, more insistent, like the plastic toggle had found a rhythm. Eli leaned in, peering at the slats, looking for gaps. "If it's a draft, we can fix it. It's annoying." "It's after midnight," I said, and immediately hated how that sounded, like I was quoting a superstition I didn't believe in. Eli turned his head slightly, enough that I could see the faintest glint of his eye in the streetlight seep. "Are you doing that thing where your brain decides the time makes it scarier?" I swallowed. The thing was, yes, time did that to me. Midnight was when normal sounds turned into messages. "I'm just tired," I said, "and it's weird." Eli's phone buzzed once on the windowsill where he'd left it earlier, charging. It was a bright, sudden sound in the quiet. Eli glanced at it automatically. His screen lit up, throwing a quick wash of white across the blinds. The notification banner was too small for me to read from the bed, but Eli's posture changed in a subtle way. Not alarmed, more like focused. "What is it?" I asked. "Neighbor group chat," he said, voice careful. "From Sonia." The name made my stomach dip, because Sonia didn't text late. Sonia upstairs was a good morning person and a sorry to bother you person. And I left muffins outside your door person. Sonia late night texting meant something had broken. Eli's thumb moved. The screen brightness flared again, briefly illuminating his hand. Sonia says, he squinted. She says, is anyone else hearing something outside? Like someone messing with the windows. My mouth went dry. A draft didn't message the neighbor group chat. Eli looked back at the blinds. The cord tapped again, almost politely, as if acknowledging it had been discussed. I'm going to take a quick look, Eli said, and there it was, his default setting. Inspect, solve, move on. Eli, I whispered, maybe we just don't. He turned toward me fully now, and I could see his face in the thin light. Calm, slightly amused, a little irritated at being awake. We're on the second floor, and the street's right there. If someone's messing around, we should know. I wanted to tell him about my private fear, the one I never framed as fear because it sounded childish. That attention invites escalation. That if you acknowledge the wrong person at the wrong moment, you become a story they keep telling. But I didn't want to be the person who made Eli roll his eyes. The tapping stopped. That was worse somehow, because it felt like a response. Eli's hand closed around the blind cord. The plastic toggle was warm from being handled so often. He held it still. No movement, no draft. From somewhere outside, down on the street, a low laugh drifted up, then cut off sharply, as if someone had covered their mouth. Eli's eyes flicked to the gap near the pull cord. He hesitated just a fraction. Okay, he said softly. That's not wind. I stared at him, heart thudding in a way that felt too loud. The room smelled suddenly sharp, like metal and old paint. Eli didn't pull the blinds up. He didn't open them. He just stood there, hand still on the cord, listening. His phone buzzed again. Another message. Eli glanced down. Sonia says, he swallowed, and the word that followed came out slower, heavier. She says she saw someone in the courtyard, looking up. He looked back at the window. Then, very carefully, Eli lifted his other hand toward the slats, as if he could adjust them without revealing anything. I sat up straighter, sheet slipping from my chest. Eli, I said, and my voice didn't feel like mine. Don't look out. He stopped with his fingers an inch from the blinds, frozen between curiosity and caution. The choice was right there, thin as the gap between slats. We could leave them closed, lock ourselves into ignorance, and wait for morning, and pretend the world couldn't touch us through glass. Or we could look, and once you look, you can't unknow what's outside. Eli didn't look out the window. That surprised me more than the tapping. He lowered his hand slowly, like the blinds might spook if he moved too fast. The room felt tighter with him standing there, a solid shape between me and the glass. His phone buzzed again, vibrating against the sill with a dry insect sound that made my shoulders jump. I'm calling the building manager, he said quietly. At midnight, I whispered. She told us to call if anything weird happens. Remember, after the bike thefts, he already had the phone to his ear. It rang once, twice, then flipped to voicemail. Eli didn't bother leaving a message. He hung up and exhaled through his nose. Outside, something shifted. Not a footstep exactly, more like weight being redistributed. The courtyard had that echoing quality old apartment buildings get, where sounds bounce off brick and come back slightly warped. You can tell yourself it's nothing and still feel watched. Another message chimed. Eli glanced down. Sonia again. I slid out of bed and crossed the room, stopping a few feet behind him. The floor was cold enough to bite. What does she say? She says the guy moved closer to the building, that she thinks he's checking doors. My throat tightened. Doors. Ground floor, probably. Eli rubbed his forehead with his free hand. She's freaking out. A scrape came from the window frame, longer this time, deliberate. Something dragged lightly along the painted wood, then stopped. That's not the wind, I said, unnecessarily. Eli nodded once. Okay, new plan. He turned to face me, voice low and steady in that way he used when he was trying to be reassuring. We call the police. Non-emergency. Is this non-emergency? I asked, hatting the way my voice wobbled. It's someone lurking, not breaking in. Yet, he emphasized the last word like a promise he intended to keep. He dialed. The phone rang longer this time. While we waited, I found myself staring at the tiny gap in the blinds again. My chest tightened with the urge to look, just to know. Not knowing felt like hovering over a drop without seeing how far down it went. The operator answered. Eli explained location, noises, neighbor reports. He kept it factual, stripped of panic. I admired that about him, even as a part of me resented it. Calm made things feel manageable. Panic made them honest. Yes, Eli said into the phone. Second floor. No, we haven't seen him directly. We hear he paused, listening. The scraping stopped. Silence rushed in to fill the space it left, thick and expectant. I could hear my own breathing too clearly. Hold on, Eli said to the operator. He muted the phone and turned to me. It stopped. That's not good, I said. That's worse. Agreed, he unmuted. Yes, sorry. The noise just stopped. We're staying inside. The operator's voice murmured through the speaker, too soft for me to catch the words. Eli nodded along, jaw tight. Outside, a low thud sounded from somewhere below, followed by a muffled curse. Human. Definitely human. My stomach dropped. Eli straightened. Did you hear that? Yes. That was downstairs. He pulled the phone away from his ear again. I'm going to check the hallway camera feed. The building had installed cheap security cameras after a string of package thefts. The feed was accessible through an app that worked most of the time. Eli crossed to the dresser and opened his laptop, fingers moving quickly. I hovered near his shoulder, trying not to crowd him, trying not to think about how exposed the ground floor apartments were. The app loaded slowly, buffering on a spinning icon that made my pulse tick up with every rotation. Come on, Eli muttered. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from Sonia, all caps this time. He's at the back door. I can hear HIM trying the handle. I shoved the phone toward Eli. He read it, swore under his breath. He's trying to get in, I said, the words tasting wrong. The camera feed finally snapped into focus. Grainy black and white footage of the back entrance filled the screen. The door shook slightly, the handle jiggling in short, impatient bursts. Then a figure stepped into frame. He wasn't dramatic looking. That was the worst part. No mask, no weapon visible, just a man in a dark hoodie, hood down, hair cropped short. He leaned in close to the door, peering through the glass, then tried the handle again, harder this time. Jesus, Eli breathed. He looks normal, I said. Most people do. The operator was still on the line, her voice now sharper, more directive. Eli relayed what we were seeing. She said officers were en route, ETA unclear. The city at night was a patchwork of priorities. On the screen, the man stepped back from the door and tilted his head, listening. For a horrible second, I thought he was listening to us through the walls. Then he looked up, not at our window, higher, towards Sonia's floor. I felt a cold, sinking certainty. He knows someone's home. Eli's phone chimed again. Sonia, I'm in my bathroom. He's knocking now. On the feed, the man moved out of frame. The back door rattled once more, then stilled. He's inside, I whispered. No, Eli said quickly. The door's locked. He can't. He cut himself off as the feed switched cameras automatically, cycling to the interior stairwell. The man appeared again, climbing the stairs. My heart hammered. How did he get in? The front door, Eli said. Someone must have buzzed him. The operator's voice crackled. Sir, do you know which floor he's heading to? Eli hesitated, eyes flicking to me. It was a small pause, but it felt loaded. If we told them Sonia was alone upstairs, would that make it worse? If we didn't, would it make us responsible? Third floor, Eli said finally. On the screen, the man stopped on the second floor landing. Our floor. He turned slowly, as if orienting himself, then walked down the hall, toward our apartment. I backed away from the window, instinctively, bumping into the bed. Eli. I see him, Eli said, voice flat. Stay quiet. The footsteps outside our door were soft, unhurried. The kind of steps someone takes when they're not afraid of being caught. A shadow passed beneath the doorframe, blocking the hall light for a second. Then a knock, not loud, not violent. 3 measured taps with knuckles. Police, a man's voice called, calm and practiced. Open up. Every nerve in my body screamed no. I grabbed Eli's arm, fingers digging in. That's not the police, I whispered. Eli swallowed. His private flaw, his need to verify, to see, to confirm, was written all over his face. He moved toward the door anyway, slow, deliberate. I'm not opening it, he said, more to himself than to me. I'm checking the peephole. My chest tightened. Attention invites escalation. I'd known it. I'd always known it. Eli leaned in, eye to the peephole. Outside, the man's shadow shifted closer to the door. Sir, the voice said again, closer now. We just need to talk. Eli stiffened. There's something wrong, he whispered. He's smiling. Before I could pull him back, the door handle rattled violently, metal clanging against metal. Open the door, the man said. No pretense left in his voice now. From upstairs, Sonia screamed, and somewhere below us, a siren wailed, too far away to matter yet. Eli stumbled back from the door like he'd touched something hot. "He's not police," he said, unnecessarily, because the man outside had already proven that by yanking the handle again, harder this time. The metal rang through the apartment, sharp and ugly. "Police don't smile like that," Eli added, voice shaking now. That was new. I dragged him away from the door by his sleeve, pulling him toward the kitchen where the walls were thicker, where there was no glass. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like motion sickness. "Bathroom," I whispered. "Now." Another knock. Not polite anymore. Knuckles slamming flat, palm heavy against the wood. The doorframe creaked in protest. "Open up," the man barked. Eli shook his head like he was trying to clear water from his ears. "We need to help Sonia." That sentence cracked something open inside me. My fear, instinct to shrink and wait, collided headfirst with the reality of someone else paying for our caution. "She's upstairs," I said. "We can't just—" A loud bang cut me off. Not from our door, from above us. Sonia screamed again. A raw, animal sound that scraped my nerves bare. Eli was already moving. He grabbed his keys from the hook by the door, the metal clinking too loudly. I caught his wrist. "Eli, if we open this—" "He's not at our door anymore," Eli said. He pressed his ear to the wall, then to the door. The hallway was suddenly quiet. Too quiet. The camera feed on the laptop flickered. I darted to it, fingers shaking as I dragged the cursor. The stairwell view showed the man halfway up the next flight, moving fast now, 2 steps at a time. "He's going to her," I said. Eli swore. Okay. We go out the fire escape." The fire escape was in the kitchen, a narrow window that opened onto a rusted metal ladder bolted to the back of the building. It wasn't ideal, but it bypassed the hall and connected to Sonia's floor. Eli shoved the kitchen window open. Cold air slapped my face, carrying the smell of damp brick and garbage bins. The ladder rattled softly in the wind. "Go," Eli said. "I hate ladders," I said, which felt like the stupidest possible thing to say. "I know," he said. "I'll be right behind you." That was my private flaw laid bare. Heights froze me. Something about trusting my weight to narrow rungs made my legs turn traitorous. Another crash upstairs, wood splintering this time. I swung one leg out, then the other, hands gripping the icy metal. The ladder swayed slightly, a normal thing, but my brain translated it as "you will fall." I forced myself down one rung, then another. From above, a door slammed. Sonia's voice shouted something I couldn't make out, words dissolving into panic. Eli climbed out after me, the ladder protesting under our combined weight. Halfway down, my foot slipped on frost. My knee slammed into a rung, pain flaring white-hot. "Shit," I gasped. "You okay?" Eli whispered. "Keep going," I hissed through clenched teeth. We reached the small landing level with Sonia's apartment. Eli pulled himself over first, then grabbed my arm and hauled me up. My knee throbbed, already stiffening. We crept along the narrow metal walkway toward Sonia's window. The building's brick wall loomed close, trapping sound. Somewhere below, a dumpster lid banged in the wind, a hollow, booming noise that made me flinch. A shadow moved behind Sonia's curtain. "Sonia," Eli whispered, tapping softly on the glass. "It's us." The shadow jerked. The curtain twitched. "Don't open the door," she hissed through the glass, face pale and streaked with tears when she pulled the curtain back an inch. "He's inside." "We know," I said, "bathroom." She nodded frantically. "He broke the bedroom door. I locked myself in here." A heavy thud echoed from inside her apartment, followed by the unmistakable sound of furniture being shoved aside. "He's looking for me," she whispered. Eli tested the window. Locked. "Can you open it?" he asked. "I think so." Sonia fumbled with the latch, hands shaking. The window stuck, swollen from winter damp. She shoved harder. Inside the apartment, footsteps approached. Slow, deliberate. "I can't," Sonia whispered, panic tipping her voice toward hysteria. Eli wedged his fingers under the frame and pulled. The wood groaned. The window budged an inch. Footsteps closer now. A shadow passed beneath the bathroom door inside. "Police are coming," I blurted, hoping it was true enough to matter. "Just keep." The bathroom door handle rattled violently. Sonia screamed. Eli heaved. The window flew open with a crack that sounded like a gunshot in the tight space. Cold air rushed out, carrying the sharp smell of cleaning chemicals and fierce sweat. "Sonia now," Eli said. She scrambled toward the window, climbing awkwardly over the sill. Her foot slipped, scraping skin. She cried out, but kept moving. Inside, something crashed into the bathroom door. Wood splintered. Sonia tumbled onto the fire escape landing, sobbing. Eli grabbed her under the arms, hauling her fully out just as the bathroom door burst inward behind her. A man filled the doorway. Up close, he looked worse. Eyes too bright. A smear of blood on his knuckles that I realized, with a sick jolt, was Sonia's. He stared at us for a second, breathing hard. Then he laughed a short, incredulous bark. "There you are," he said. He lunged for the window. Eli shoved Sonia behind him and kicked at the man's hands as they came through the opening. Fingers scraped metal, skin tearing. The man howled, more angry than hurt. I grabbed the window frame and slammed it down as hard as I could. The glass rattled. The latch didn't catch. The man slammed his shoulder against it from inside. Again, again, the window bowed inward, the frame cracking. "We can't hold this," Eli said, breathless. Below us, the siren wailed again, closer now, but still not here. Then from the courtyard, a shout rose. "Police, show me your hands." The man froze. For one hopeful second, I thought it was over. Then the voice shouted again, closer, echoing wrong against the brick. And I realized, with a sick twist, that it wasn't authoritative enough. Too loud, too eager. The man's mouth curled into a grin. "Nice try," he said. A door somewhere below slammed. Footsteps pounded on the stairs, real ones this time. Heavier, multiple. The man yanked back from the window and ran. "Where he going?" Sonia sobbed. Eli leaned over the railing, peering down despite himself. Down, toward the front. We heard shouting now, real panic in it. A crash, glass breaking. And then, from the hallway behind us, the one connecting Sonia's apartment to the stairwell, a door creaked open. A second figure stepped out. Not the same man. This one held a crowbar. Eli's face drained of color. We're trapped. Behind us, the crowbar man blocking the walkway to Sonia's apartment door. Below us, the ladder swaying slick with frost. In front of us, open air. There was no way back inside without passing someone dangerous. There was no safe way down, and the fire escape groaned under our weight. A tired sound, like it had been waiting years to give up. The fire escape shrieked, not loud, metal on metal. A long, complaining whine that traveled through my teeth and into my skull. The sound came when the second man took a step forward, crowbar dangling loose in his hand, like he wasn't even worried about dropping it. "Easy," Eli said, palms up. His voice had gone calm in a way that scared me more than shouting. "We don't want trouble." The crowbar man laughed under his breath. He was older than the first 40s, maybe, balding. A work jacket with a logo stitched over the chest I couldn't quite read in the dark. Someone who blended. Someone you'd hold a door for. Behind the cracked bathroom window, glass crunched. The first man reappeared, blood on his knuckles darker now, slick. He leaned out just far enough to see us pinned between metal and air. "Don't let them drop," he said casually, like we were furniture. Sonia whimpered and grabbed my sleeve. Her hand was shaking so badly it rattled my bones. The ladder swayed again. Frost glittered on the rungs, 20 feet down to concrete. Eli's eyes flicked to it anyway. I knew what he was thinking. Calculating weight, angles, odds. His flaw, the need to verify, to solve, was still there, even now. "Phones," the crowbar man said. "Slide him over." "No," Eli said, immediate, sharp. The crowbar rose an inch. "Okay," I said too fast. "Okay, just don't push anyone." I reached for my pocket. Eli shot me a look, but he didn't stop me. I slid my phone across the metal grate with my foot. It clattered, skidded, stopped near the crowbar man's boot. Sonia did the same. Her phone bounced once and fell through the gap between bars. We all watched it drop. The little sound it made when it hit, plastic against concrete, felt final. The crowbar man scowled. "You stupid." A siren wailed again. This one different. Doppler shifted, closer, real. The first man swore. "They're actually coming." "Then move," the crowbar man snapped. He lunged not at us, but at Eli. The fire escape jerked violently as Eli twisted away. The crowbar slammed down where his hand had been, sparks flying. Eli grunted, staggered, and his foot slipped on the frost. I grabbed him without thinking. My bad knee screamed as it took his weight. We both went down hard, metal biting into skin. The crowbar came up again. I reached for the first thing my hand closed around, the loose end of the blind pull cord I'd stuffed in my pocket without realizing it. Habit more than logic. Plastic toggle. Thin nylon line. I wrapped it around the crowbar man's wrist and yanked. It wasn't strong. It wasn't heroic, but it surprised him. The crowbar clanged against the railing, and slipped free, skittering toward the edge. The first man shouted something from the window and lunged out, half climbing, half falling onto the escape. The added weight made the whole structure dip. A bolt gave way with a sound like a gunshot. The ladder tore loose from the wall at the bottom. Metal screamed. Sonia shrieked. The fire escape tilted outward, slow at first, then faster. Gravity finally winning an argument it had been having all night. "Hold on," Eli shouted, grabbing the railing with both hands. The crowbar man lost his footing and slammed into me. The air punched out of my lungs. We hit the bars together. My knee buckled with a wet, nauseating pop. I screamed. I couldn't stop myself. The first man grabbed for the window frame as the escape dropped. His fingers slipped on blood. He fell backward, hitting the railing hard enough to knock the breath from him. For one suspended second, we were all balanced on a slanted cage of rust and bad decisions. Then the remaining bolts tore free. The fire escape went. We slid, not a clean fall. A grinding, tearing descent, metal ripping past brick, bodies banging against rails. I hit the side hard enough to see white. Eli hit harder, shoulder first, his grip finally failing. Sonia vanished from my sight, dropping out of frame with a sound I still hear when it's quiet. The first man screamed all the way down. We hit the dumpster. The impact folded the lid inward with a concussive boom. Garbage exploded up around us, wet cardboard, sour food, glass. Pain flared everywhere at once, too big to sort. I lay there, stunned, breath hitching. The world narrowed to smell and ringing. Sirens screamed, close now, tires skidded. "Don't move," someone shouted. A real voice this time, authority with weight behind it. Hands grabbed me, careful but firm, rolling me onto my back. A flashlight burned my eyes. Eli was on the ground a few feet away, not moving. Blood ran down his temple, dark against pale skin. I tried to sit up. My knee refused. I sobbed instead, a broken sound I didn't recognize as my own. They pulled the first man out from under twisted metal, screaming and cursing, one leg bent wrong. The crowbar man didn't get up at all. A sheet went over him quickly. Sonia was alive. They said it twice before it stuck. Alive but unconscious, broken ankle, cracked ribs. Eli groaned when they loaded him onto the stretcher. That sound saved me. I held onto it like a rope. As they wheeled him away, he found my hand and squeezed once. Weak, real. "I shouldn't have looked," he whispered. I shook my head, tears blurring everything. I shouldn't have frozen. The street filled with red and blue. Neighbors pressed back behind tape. Someone handed me a blanket that smelled like plastic and smoke. Above us, the windows were dark, blinds still crooked. One pull cord dangled, swaying gently in the night breeze. Resolved, but not gone. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and warm plastic. A machine hummed softly at my left, measuring something I didn't feel qualified to understand. Morning light slid through the blinds in a way that should have been comforting. Thin and pale and ordinary. My knee was wrapped from thigh to shin. immobilized at an angle that made it feel borrowed. Every pulse sent a dull reminder upward, not sharp anymore, just insistent. I'd been told the words ligament damage and surgery later, and I'd nodded like a person who understood timelines. Eli was 2 rooms down. That was the first thing I asked when I woke up, my throat dry, my voice raspy like I'd been shouting. The nurse, Janice, mid-50s, brisk but kind, told me he had a concussion, a fractured collarbone, and a deep cut that would leave a scar shaped like a crooked parenthesis near his hairline. He keeps asking for you, she said, adjusting the IV. So you're doing something right. Sonia was on another floor. Broken ankle, ribs bruised enough to make breathing painful, but no internal bleeding. Lucky, the doctor had said, which felt like a strange word to use for someone who'd been dragged across a fire escape in winter. A police officer came mid-morning. He was young, early 30s, the kind of tired that looked permanent. He asked me to recount everything slowly. I did. I stuck to facts, sounds, movements. I avoided the moments where my thoughts had raced ahead of reality. When he asked why we went out onto the fire escape, I hesitated. To help a neighbor, I said finally. He nodded, scribbling. Fire escape was condemned last year, he said, not unkindly. Notice should have been posted. I thought of the rust, the way it had complained before it failed. I wondered how many nights it had held simply because nothing had forced it not to. The building manager came next, flustered and pale, apologetic in the abstract way of people worried about liability. He talked about inspections and renovations and unfortunate oversights. I didn't answer most of it. I watched his mouth move and thought about how the courtyard looked from above, how small it had seemed. By afternoon, the adrenaline wore off completely. What was left behind felt heavy and slow. The nurses encouraged me to rest. I stared at the ceiling instead, counting tiny cracks in the paint. Eli was wheeled in just before evening. Seeing him upright, propped awkwardly by pillows, arm in a sling, hit me harder than I expected. Relief arrived late and all at once. Hey, he said, smiling carefully. His eyes were bruised yellow at the edges. Hey, I said back. We sat in silence for a while. It wasn't awkward. It felt earned. I keep replaying it, he said eventually. The moment at the door. I keep replaying the ladder, I said. I knew it was a bad idea. He huffed out a breath that might have been a laugh. I knew looking through the peephole was. We didn't argue about it. There was no point. The choices were already sealed into bone and memory. Sonia visited the next day in a wheelchair, foot elevated, eyes ringed with exhaustion. She hugged me carefully, then Eli, her hands trembling despite herself. They arrested the one who survived, she said quietly. Turns out they'd been doing this for weeks. Buildings with bad locks, waiting for someone to buzz them in. Someone did, Eli said. She nodded. Package delivery earlier that night. Wrong unit, I didn't think. None of us said anything after that. Blame didn't fit neatly anywhere. It just leaked. We were discharged in pieces. Sonia went to her sister's place. Eli and I stayed with a friend until our apartment was cleared structural damage, ongoing investigation, temporarily uninhabitable. All reasonable phrases that didn't quite cover the feeling of being unmoored. Weeks passed. My knee healed slowly, stubbornly. Physical therapy was a small, humiliating grind of exercises that made me sweat and curse under fluorescent lights. Eli went back to work before I did, his sling disappearing, his scar settling into his face like it had always belonged there. At night, we slept with lights on for a while, then lamps, then just the hallway bulb. We found a new place, 3rd floor, solid building. No fire escape outside the bedroom window. The first night there, I lay awake listening to the ordinary sounds of other people living. Footsteps overhead, a muffled TV laugh through the wall, pipes knocking themselves into place. Eli slept quickly, exhaustion finally catching up. I stared at the window across the room. The blinds were brand new, the pull cord straight and still. A car passed outside. Somewhere, a bottle rolled in the gutter and came to rest. I waited for the irrational spike of fear, the sharp intake of breath. It came, but smaller, manageable. I turned onto my side and closed my eyes. Later, maybe minutes, maybe hours, I woke to a sound. A soft click, plastic on glass. I sat up, heart racing, scanning the room. The pull cord swayed gently. The vent beneath the window exhaled warm air, pushing it just enough to tap once more before settling. I exhaled slowly. I lay back down. I did not get up to check. In the morning, sunlight filled the room. Eli made coffee that tasted faintly burned. My knee ached in a way that promised rain later. We talked about groceries, about schedules, about nothing. Outside, the world kept its distance. Mostly. And that's the end of today's chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more nights full of suspense, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on the bell so you never miss a scare. I've got plenty more stories waiting for you, so stick around and check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe and don't look behind you. Welcome back to Mia Horror Stories. Tonight's tale, Don't Open the Door When It Knocks Thrice, is best experienced in the dark, which is why the screen will stay black. No distractions, no flashing images, just you, your imagination, and the story. So sit back, relax, and listen all the way to the end, if you dare. Rain slid down the narrow street in thin sheets, pooling along the uneven cobblestones. The kind of drizzle that made the night smell of wet asphalt and wet dog. Marissa pulled her hood tighter, muttering under her breath as she balanced the grocery bags, each one threatening to split. She was 12 minutes late, thanks to the bus that had vanished somewhere between Maple and Chestnut, and now her shoes squelched with every step. Her apartment building was the sort that tried to pass as quaint. Narrow brick, peeling paint, a tiny courtyard with a lone lamppost that flickered like it was unsure it even wanted to be there. The buzzer by the door made a hollow clang when pressed. Marissa hit it twice out of habit, waiting for the click that signaled the door unlocking. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. and she was thinking, not for the first time, that the stairs were steeper than she remembered. The first thing she noticed when she reached her floor was that the hall smelled like burned toast. Not the faint smell of someone's breakfast, but the heavy, clinging aroma of scorched crumbs or overcooked bread, and it wasn't coming from her apartment. That was odd. She frowned. The smell had a sour undertone, like something else had been burning and gone off. She jiggled her keys. Marissa, the voice was her neighbor, soft, uncertain. She looked down the hall. Jeff was there, leaning against the wall outside his apartment. Jeff Carter, 34, male, lived alone in 3B. He had a habit of checking on neighbors when he heard something off, which was every Tuesday and Thursday, because he worked nights and apparently listened to floors creak like it was Morse code. Tonight he wore an olive jacket soaked at the elbows and a frown that made him look older than 34. "Hey," she called. "Smells weird, huh? You smell that too?" He nodded, eyes scanning the hallway like someone might be hiding behind the cracked corners of the ceiling. "Yeah, I thought it was my toaster at first. Haven't used it tonight, though. Maybe someone burned something in the laundry room." The notion should have been reassuring. Instead, her stomach turned over a little. Small things were happening, unlinked, and her brain refused to stop noticing them. The flickering overhead light, the hum of the heating vent that seemed louder than usual, a dripping somewhere that didn't match the pattern of the rain outside. "Want me to check the laundry room?" she asked, setting the groceries down. "Not tonight," he said immediately, and the sudden sharpness made her glance at him. Jeff wasn't abrupt. Usually, she could almost hear the tension coiled in his voice, the muscles in his neck taut as he crossed his arms. "You okay, Marissa? You look pale." "I'm fine." She really was. Her stomach churned with an unease she couldn't place. She felt it in her teeth, the tension in her jaw. She reached for her apartment key, hands shaking just a fraction more than she liked to admit. She hated that the irrational side of her had started whispering over the last few months about being careful about people, about the world being stranger than it seemed. The key turned in the lock. The door swung open. Inside, the apartment smelled normal laundry detergent, the faint hint of yesterday's dinner, but the lights overhead flickered once. That split-second dip made the shadows in the corners seem heavier, closer. Marissa shivered. She was fully aware of how absurd that was. A flicker of the fluorescent light, a storm outside, and her imagination spinning the rest. Then she heard it, knocks, 3 short, deliberate raps. She froze, one hand still on the doorknob. Her pulse jumped. They weren't light knocks, hard, hollow, methodical. The kind that made her stomach curl up. She strained her ears, expecting another. Nothing. Her apartment had only one door. No one else should have been up here. Jeff had his door closed, the faint light underneath suggesting he was home. Yet there it was, or had been a physical thud, not a trick of her imagination. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A message from her sister. Don't stay out too late. Be careful. Marissa cursed under her breath. She wasn't scared of the street, not really. But something about the combination, the smell, the knocks, the faint hum of the hallway vent, Jeff's tense presence, made her wish she could vanish into the walls. "Hey," she called out, though she wasn't sure who she expected to hear her. "Anyone there?" Silence. She glanced at Jeff's door. He hadn't moved. He couldn't have heard her over his TV, that much she knew. And yet, her body refused to relax. She set the grocery bags on the counter, sliding a knife out of habit. Nothing premeditated, just safety in motion. Her mind raced through the options. She could step into the hallway to see if anyone was there, lock the door and pretend she didn't hear it, call the building superintendent. Marissa hated confrontation, hated it in a way that made her sometimes freeze when she shouldn't. She also hated leaving problems unaddressed. Both traits now tangled together, tugging her toward the hallway, toward answers. The rain outside hammered harder, drum-like against the windows. Her apartment felt too small, too exposed. She could hear the hum of the heater again, louder now, like it had picked up a rhythm of its own. Knock, knock, knock. 3 raps. She swallowed hard. The sound wasn't coming from the hallway this time. It was coming from the door, her door. The groceries on the counter seemed heavier suddenly, a reminder of her own vulnerability. Her fingers tightened around the knife handle without thinking, teeth clenched. Marissa's heart thudded erratic. She considered retreating, waiting for Jeff to check, letting someone else make the first move. But the thought made her chest ache, not fear exactly, but something close to anger at herself for hesitating. She stepped closer to the door. Another knock, this one softer, almost polite, but deliberate. The decision pressed against her like the rain against the window. Open it and face whatever was there, or leave it closed and hope it went away. The ambiguity itself was suffocating. And then her phone buzzed again. Just be careful. She knew she was teetering, and she had to choose. Marissa pressed herself against the door, the knife handle tight in her hand. Every instinct screamed, "Don't." Yet her curiosity, the one she hated in herself for always getting her into trouble, had her leaning forward, listening. Knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp raps, almost mocking. Her pulse accelerated. She could feel the ache in her stomach, a tight coil of nerves. The logical part of her brain ran through every mundane explanation. Delivery gone wrong, prankster neighbor, misfired maintenance crew. But the fear she couldn't shake whispered that someone had been watching her building all evening, waiting. "Marissa, you sure you don't want me to check it?" Jeff's voice was low, calm, but insistent. She could hear him moving behind her. The shift in the floorboards, the scrape of his shoes. I don't know," she admitted, swallowing. Her voice sounded foreign, small, even to her. She hated admitting uncertainty. Always had. Her hesitation felt like weakness now. Jeff leaned closer. eyes scanning the peephole from a safe distance. No one out there. Maybe it's one of those knockers who go around. Old habit, I guess. Yeah, Marissa said, but her stomach nodded. She didn't believe him, not fully. She could feel the shadows in the hallway stretching toward her, shadows that weren't hers. Another knock, but this time it was softer, polite, deliberate, then silence. Okay, Marissa said, voice firmer than she felt. I'm going to check the hallway, just to be safe. Jeff frowned. I can come. Please don't, she snapped, almost immediately regretting the tone. Her private fear, the one that drove her to overcompensate in every situation, was showing. The fear of relying on anyone, needing to do things herself. It was pride disguised as independence. And right now, it was making her reckless. She grabbed the nearest flashlight, one of those small aluminum ones she kept by the door, and flicked it on. A thin beam cut through the dim hallway. The smell of burnt toast hit again, stronger now. And there, near the end, the laundry room door was cracked open just enough to let a slice of shadow slip into the hallway. Marissa's heart thudded, hard enough that she thought Jeff might hear it through the wall. She stepped forward slowly. Each step made the floor groan beneath her weight. She couldn't tell if the noises were from the rain, or the building itself settling, or something else. Marissa, Jeff's voice came again, this time sharper. If something's wrong, we call the cops, don't. She shushed him with a shake of her head. Another knock echoed, this time from the far end of the hall, by the stairwell. The timing didn't match her door anymore. Someone or something was moving, aware of her, aware of Jeff. A cold thought hit. The hallway had no security cameras. The broken lamppost outside threw a sickly glow across the street, but it didn't reach this floor. If someone was here with her, they had every advantage. She glanced back at Jeff's door. He hadn't moved, but she could see his silhouette framed by the dim light, arms crossed. Ready, but waiting. Maybe we should just lock ourselves in my apartment, Jeff said, more insistently. Wait for the cops. Whoever it is, they're playing a game with us. Marissa shook her head. We don't know that. What if it's someone trapped outside in the rain, needing help? She hated herself for the lie, hated herself more for believing it. Her flaw, her stubborn sense of responsibility, was making her rationalize danger. Another knock. This one was from her own door. She froze, mid-step. The beam of her flashlight quivered with her hand. Whoever was out there knew she'd left the door open, just a crack. Maybe they were testing her, learning how far they could push her. Marissa, Jeff's voice was closer now, anxiety threading it. We should call, just call. Her fingers hovered over her phone, thumbs twitching. The battery icon glared red. Less than 10%. She hadn't charged it properly, too busy with errands and work. A minor oversight that suddenly felt catastrophic. The hallway seemed to shrink around her. The burnt smell stronger, sharper now, like it had been concentrated by someone's presence. She could hear the faint drip of water somewhere in the corner, mismatched to the rain outside. Every instinct screamed, but she hated running, hated surrendering. The knock came again, this time rapid, not 3-5 sharp raps, each one echoing with precision. It was unnerving, rhythmical. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't random. Someone was playing her, testing her limits. Marissa stepped back. Now, Jeff's voice had authority this time. She had ignored it too long. Her private fear collided with the immediate danger. She wanted to be brave. She wanted to prove she could handle it herself. But the reality pressed against her chest, heavy and wet, like the rain outside. She was alone in the hallway, exposed, with an intruder she hadn't seen yet. And her phone, her only link to help, was critically low. A sudden crash echoed from the laundry room. A metal cart tipped over, rolling across the floor toward her apartment door. She jumped, flashlight flickering, knife raised. Jeff cursed under his breath, knocking on his door now in a frustrated rhythm. Marissa's mind raced. Move forward and risk confrontation, retreat, and possibly leave the threat unchecked, or try to barricade herself until help arrived. Each option carried risk, and the time to choose was shrinking. Another knock, this time more aggressive, came from her door, shaking the frame slightly. And then, over the thrum of rain and dripping water, she heard something worse. The faint sound of a voice, low, muttering, indistinct, but close, too close. The hallway narrowed into a maze of sound, shadows, and scents. Her flashlight beam caught a flash of movement near the stairwell. Whoever it was had not left. They were inside, moving. And now, the choice she'd been avoiding loomed like a trap. Act or wait, and hope they didn't decide to act first. Marissa's hand shook as she pressed the flashlight closer to the door frame, scanning the narrow hallway. The rain outside hammered harder now, drumming against the thin window panes and echoing through the building. The smell of burnt toast had morphed into something acrid, almost chemical, like scorched oil. Her stomach churned, muscles tight with adrenaline, but she refused to step back. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "Just check the stairwell, quick glance, then back inside." She edged toward the stairwell entrance at the far end of the hall. The light bounced off the wet linoleum, highlighting the chipped edges of the walls, the patchwork of old paint, and the twisted metal railing of the stairs. She could see Jeff's apartment door behind her, a faint rectangle of light spilling out, but she ignored it. Her first attempt was cautious. Just a look down the stairs. The beam caught the dripping water from the ceiling near the landing, and for a heart-stopping moment, she thought she saw a figure crouched halfway down the stairwell. She froze. The beam wavered. "Who's there?" Her voice was tight, brittle. The figure didn't move. A clatter rang out behind her on the floor near her apartment door. Her flashlight flickered as she spun around. Jeff was banging on the door frame, face pale, signaling her to step back. "It's nothing." The wind blew the metal cart over. Relief hit in a pulse, but it didn't last. Her heart still raced. Adrenaline made her legs ache, her back throb from bending and peering. The building's thin walls carried every sound: the drip of water, the hum of the heater, the faint rattle of pipes. Each ordinary noise was suddenly a potential threat. Her second attempt was bolder. She needed to verify the door, to see if the knocks had been manipulated from inside. She edged toward the threshold, flashlight beam illuminating the tiny peephole. She pressed her eye to it, trying to focus in the dark. At first, she saw only darkness, then movement, a shadow stretching across the hall outside her door. She jerked back, heart in her throat. Knock, 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 3 sharp raps. Her breath caught. It's still. Probably just someone passing, Jeff said, voice tight. He had come halfway down the hall this time, hands up in a defensive gesture. Maybe a neighbor, or... The third knock came, louder, more forceful. This time, she realized, the sound wasn't on the door. It was on the wall beside it, the old intercom panel rattling with each rap. Whoever had been trying to get her attention wasn't outside. They were inside the building, all along. Her mind spun. Jeff's warnings, the smell, the shifted pattern of the knocks, it all pointed to someone moving deliberately through the hall. Panic pressed at her ribs, making it hard to breathe. Back inside, Jeff ordered, "Now." She obeyed, moving toward the apartment door as quickly as her frayed nerves allowed. But as she closed it, the flashlight beam caught a shimmer in the mirror near the hallway entrance. Another figure. She spun, knife raised, but it was only the reflection of a wet jacket hung on a hook. A misdirection that twisted her stomach into knots. Once inside, they locked the door and leaned against it, breathing heavily. Marissa's hand throbbed where she had held the flashlight too tight. Her ears rang with the echoes of the previous knocks. "Do we have a plan?" Jeff asked, his voice low. "Calling the cops, right?" Marissa pulled her phone from her pocket. 10%. Not enough to stream or stay on the line indefinitely. She scrolled to the building's superintendent's number. No answer. Then the police non-emergency line, only to get a long, recorded message about high call volumes. "Damn it," she muttered, dropping the phone on the counter. The red battery icon mocked her, a cruel reminder of her lack of preparation. They tried another strategy, checking the hallway from inside through the peephole. The stairwell landing was empty. The metal cart lay askew. Shadows shifted, but no one emerged. Every sound, drip, hum, creak, seemed amplified. Marissa's muscles ached. Her back protested, and her hands shook so badly that the flashlight's beam jumped like a jittering insect. They thought they had a momentary reprieve. Then came a new clue. Scratches on the hallway floor near the laundry room door, faint but deliberate, as though someone had dragged something heavy across it. Not random, not coincidental. Someone had been moving inside the building, avoiding detection, manipulating sound and shadows. "We can't wait this out," Jeff said, frustration mounting. "They're already in here, Marissa. We have to do something." Marissa's chest tightened. She hated admitting it, but he was right. Her stubborn independence had brought her to a dangerous impasse. Retreat wasn't an option anymore, not with an intruder capable of moving unseen through the building. Another knock, this time at the stairwell, loud enough to rattle the railing. They exchanged glances. "Okay," she whispered, voice tight. "We have to move." "Where?" Jeff's eyes darted to the fire escape at the far end of the hall, just past the stairwell. The metal steps glistened with rainwater. It was the only route down without stepping into the hallway that had been manipulated against them. She swallowed hard. Her hands were sweaty, knuckles white. Her knife felt heavier than it had any right to be. She looked back at her apartment, safe until now, and realized there was no turning back. Whatever was in the building had seen them move, had timed the knocks, had manipulated sound. The illusion of choice had been stripped away. "Fire escape," Jeff said, voice calm now, but edged with tension. "We go together, one step at a time." Marissa nodded, gripping her knife like a lifeline. Her stomach ached, her muscles burned from adrenaline and fear. Every sense was sharp, straining for signs of movement, every shadow a possible threat. She opened the door. The hallway seemed narrower, darker. The smell of burnt toast and scorched oil thicker, more pungent. She could hear water dripping somewhere beyond the stairwell. A flicker of movement caught her eye, and she froze. But it was only the reflection of a dangling coat. Relief was instant, but fleeting. Knock, 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 3 sharp raps. Her stomach sank. This time it came from behind them, from inside the apartment. Someone was waiting, listening, maybe preparing to follow. "Move," Jeff hissed. They ran toward the stairwell, and the fire escaped beyond it. The hallway seemed endless, every step echoing unnaturally, stretching time, pressing fear into their bones. Marissa's legs screamed, lungs burning. Each heartbeat felt louder than the last. When they reached the fire escape, rain drenched them instantly, cold and heavy. Metal stairs slicked beneath their feet. They had crossed the point of no return. No retreat. No apartment door to lock themselves in. The intruder could follow, could be waiting on the next floor, could be observing from a shadowed window. And they were exposed, completely. The fire escape shuddered beneath their weight, slick with rain. Each metal step groaning like it was protesting their presence. Marissa's knife cut through the dim light, its aluminum handle cold and slippery. Rain soaked through her jacket, plastering hair to her face. Her chest burned with exertion. Every step demanded focus she didn't fully have. Behind her, Jeff's breathing came in harsh, controlled bursts, the tension in his posture visible even in the dark. "Keep moving," he hissed. "Don't stop, don't look down." Marissa's mind raced. The scratches on the hallway floor, the rattling intercom, the burnt smell. Every clue from before now stitched together into a terrifying picture. Someone inside had been watching, manipulating sound, steering them toward the fire escape. They hadn't been testing her, they had been preparing, waiting for the right moment. A metallic clang sounded above them. Someone had climbed to the fire escape too, or at least followed them. Marissa froze. Heart leaping into her throat, she swung the flashlight toward the noise. Nothing but darkness. Another step, and the beam caught a movement barely visible, shadowed against the wall of the adjacent building. A figure crouched, following. "Move," Jeff shouted, jerking her forward. They descended faster, rain sluicing over their bodies, each step treacherous. Her legs trembled, calves burning from adrenaline and exertion. The wind whipped through the narrow shaft between buildings, carrying the faint scent of smoke, burnt toast, chemical tang, acrid and sharp. The smell had been inside all along, a warning she had ignored. Halfway down, her boot slipped on a slick step. She lurched, knife sliding from her hand. It clattered down below, striking the metal steps. Jeff lunged and caught her elbow, steadying her. "You okay?" he yelled over the rain. I think so," she gasped. Her fingers brushed the knife as it slid toward the next step. She grabbed it, hands trembling, knuckles white. A sudden rap echoed up the shaft, 3 sharp knocks, deliberate, calculated. They weren't alone. Someone was waiting, matching their movement. "Down faster," Jeff said, voice sharp. He grabbed her other arm, pulling her. The wind tore at her jacket, the rain pummeling their faces. Every instinct screamed caution, but there was no choice. Every step downward was a gamble on metal slick from rain, muscles screaming, and someone tracking them above. Near the bottom, a gust of wind swung a section of the fire escape railing toward them, narrowly missing Marissa's head. She stumbled back, scraping her elbow against the metal. Pain seared, stinging through her sleeve. She gritted her teeth, forcing herself to ignore it. They reached the street. Wet asphalt pooled beneath their feet, and the streetlight overhead buzzed, flickering. Their breaths rose in clouds, visible in the misty rain. They were exposed, vulnerable, every shadow a potential threat. Then movement, the figure above the stairwell, silhouetted against the upper floor landing. Male, tall, wet jacket clinging, carrying something in his hand, probably nothing lethal, but enough to terrify. Marissa froze, muscles locked. Jeff grabbed her arm, pulling her behind the low concrete wall bordering the building. "Plan," he said, low and clipped. "We can't outrun him in the rain, not on these slick streets. We have to." A horn blared from the street down below. A delivery truck, lights cutting through the rain. The figure hesitated, gave a short glance downward, and that was all Marissa needed. "Run," she breathed. They sprinted into the open, rain blinding, muscles aching. The intruder hesitated on the stairs, uncertain, and then vanished back into shadow. They didn't stop until they reached the relative safety of a well-lit corner store, dripping and trembling. Jeff pressed his phone to his ear. The battery icon blinked red. But held long enough to reach 911. Marissa leaned against the wall, knife clutched in her hand, feeling the pain in her elbow and the chill through her jacket. Minutes later, police arrived, flashing lights painting the wet street in red and blue. Officers swept the building, calling out, checking the stairwells, knocking on doors. The intruder had vanished. Whoever had been orchestrating the knocks, and the smells had disappeared before help arrived. Marissa's relief was tempered by exhaustion. Her body ached, joints stiff from the sprint, muscles trembling from adrenaline, and a small cut on her elbow stung sharply. She felt the tension leaving in waves, but the mental residue lingered. Every shadow, every sound, every faint smell of burnt toast would haunt her for nights to come. Jeff put a hand on her shoulder. "You did good," he said, voice low. "You stayed calm when you needed to. But next time," he shook his head, "we don't do it alone." Marissa nodded, still breathing hard. She wanted to protest, to claim she could handle herself. But the reality pressed against her chest. Even the best instincts couldn't guarantee safety. She had survived, yes, but at the cost of raw nerves, physical strain, and the lingering knowledge that someone had been inside her building, inside her space, watching. The police took statements, checked her apartment, and the staircase, noting the water, the scratches, and the upended metal cart. Marissa recounted the knocks, the smells, the reflections, the fear. Jeff added corroboration. No arrests were made, the intruder was gone. No signs left behind except the small, unnerving trail they had left in the hallway and stairwell. Later, back inside her apartment, Marissa sat on the edge of the couch, knife and flashlight now on the counter, rain still pattering softly against the windows. The adrenaline was fatting, leaving a hollow ache in her limbs and a gnawing awareness that she had been lucky. Her elbow throbbed, muscles sore, eyes dry from stress. But more than the physical pain was the lingering dread. That someone had infiltrated the building and orchestrated a psychological trap that fear alone would not leave her easily. The knocks might have stopped for now, but the memory, the knowledge of the intruder's precision, would haunt her in every shadowed hallway, every flickering light, for months to come. She looked at Jeff. "We made it." "Yes," he said, but even in his relief, his eyes scanned the window, the street beyond, alert. Warily, always wary. And for the first time, Marissa understood that survival didn't erase the consequences. Not really. It left scars, visible and invisible, and a deep understanding of how fragile safety could be and how quickly it could be shattered. Marissa sat on the edge of the hospital bed, one elbow bandaged, the other bruised from slamming into the metal railing during the fire escape scramble. The nurse had pressed a warm compress against her shoulder, murmuring about muscle strain and the importance of rest. But Marissa barely registered it. She kept her eyes on the rain outside, tracing the rivulets on the window, letting them carry her thoughts. Jeff sat in the chair beside her, phone in hand, scrolling through messages from the police and building management. His jacket was still damp, his face tired but alert. He glanced at her periodically, eyes searching for signs she was cracking under the adrenaline's fade. "You okay?" he asked finally, voice low, careful. Marissa exhaled, slow, deliberate. "I think so." Physically, her hands flexed and unclenched, testing the ache in her fingers. Mentally, she trailed off, shaking her head. The hospital's antiseptic smell mingled with the faint scent of rain drifting through the open window. She'd never thought of her apartment as a haven. Now it felt like a stage for something she couldn't control. The police report had been filed earlier that evening. The officers had noted the damaged hallway, the metal cart, the scratch marks, and the intercom tampering. They took photographs, recorded statements, and promised to check nearby surveillance footage. Marissa listened, but couldn't quite absorb it. The intruder was still out there, a human, calculable, capable of strategy, and still unseen. Jeff rubbed his temples. "They say someone been breaking into apartments along this block over the last month. Nothing major, mostly petty theft, but he let it hang." The implication was clear. The intruder hadn't been random. They had observed, planned, and executed with subtlety. Marissa's chest tightened at the thought. She had survived, but survival didn't erase the sense of exposure, of having been mapped and anticipated. Even as she spoke to the officers, even while leaving the hospital, she felt the faint echo of the knocks lingering in her mind. 3, deliberate, precise. Back at her apartment, the building smelled of damp carpet and old paint. She moved slowly, inspecting corners, touching the walls, remembering every sound, every smell from that night. The hallway was empty, quiet, but Marissa's eyes lingered on the intercom panel. Her hand hovered over it, then dropped. Nothing, but her imagination, trained now by fear, spun possibilities in the shadows. Jeff helped her bring groceries inside. The simplest act of normalcy felt like a small victory. They unpacked bags in silence, punctuated only by the occasional creak of the floorboards. "You know," he said finally, "I thought I'd be able to just go back to normal tonight. But this building, it's not the same." "I know," Marissa said, pulling a sweatshirt tighter. She glanced at the fire escape outside her window. Water streamed down the metal stairs, reflecting the streetlight in scattered diamonds. "And neither am I." Days passed. Marissa returned to work, her movements careful, deliberate. Every knock at her apartment door, every metallic clang from the hallway, made her flinch. She bought new locks, installed a small security camera outside her door, and refused to let herself carry groceries alone in the dark. Small victories, small habits to reclaim control, yet she felt the cracks in her ordinary life. Jeff checked in often. Sometimes they walked together to the corner store, talking about trivial things, the rain, the new cafe down the block, a neighbor's dog barking at nothing. But the tension never fully left. It threaded through conversations, in gestures, in shared silences. And then There were nights when Marissa lay awake, the memory of the 3 knocks circling her consciousness. She had survived because she adapted, because she ran, because she forced herself to improvise, but the intruder remained unseen. And unseen threats were always more terrifying. One evening, a week after the incident, she noticed a small mark near the bottom of her doorframe. Faint scratches, almost imperceptible. She bent to examine them, heart thudding, and then realized they were new. Not deep, not dangerous, but deliberate. Someone had been close enough to leave them, testing, observing again. She backed away, knuckles white. Jeff's voice came from the kitchen, calling her name, and she forced herself to exhale, to step back into routine, into normalcy. But the mark lingered in her mind, a subtle thread of unease, unbroken. Marissa didn't sleep well that night. She double-checked the locks, peered through the peephole, and kept her phone within reach. Her apartment felt smaller, her vigilance heavier. But life went on in fragments, stitched together with the quiet, constant awareness of what had happened and what might still happen. The intruder was gone for now. The physical threat was resolved, but the sense of being watched, mapped, anticipated remained. Marissa understood, finally, that some dangers leave no immediate scars, only the echoing memory of their presence. And in that memory, she knew she would carry the lesson and the dread forever. And that's the end of today's chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more nights full of suspense, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on the bell so you never miss a scare. I've got plenty more stories waiting for you, so stick around and check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe and don't look behind you. Welcome back to Mia Horror Stories. Tonight's tale: every night at 2:14 a.m., something knocks from inside the walls, is best experienced in the dark, which is why the screen will stay black. No distractions, no flashing images, just you, your imagination, and the story. So sit back, relax, and listen all the way to the end if you dare. At 2:13 a.m., the apartment makes its usual noises. The refrigerator gives a soft, tired click. Somewhere in the building, water starts in a pipe and then stops, someone turning a faucet on and off, half asleep. The heat kicks on with a faint metallic tick that always makes me think of a spoon tapping a glass. I'm awake for none of it on purpose. I'm awake because my phone buzzes against the nightstand and slides a half inch, the cheap case squeaking on the wood like a mouse. The screen lights the ceiling a weak aquarium blue. Low battery, and then the time, blunt and bright. 2:13. I roll over and reach for the charger by memory. My fingers graze dust bunnies and the edge of the nightstand. No cable. I've done that thing again where I unplug it in the morning to take to the couch. Swear I'll put it back, then forget. There's a smell in the room: warm cotton, a trace of detergent, and that faint old building scent that never quite leaves even when you mop. Plaster, paint, and something a little sour, like damp cardboard. I blink and stare toward the window, where the streetlight outside turns the blinds into stripes. That's when the sound comes. Not loud, not dramatic, not the kind of crash that makes you sit straight up. Just 3 knocks, measured, almost polite, like someone testing wood, like knuckles on a door. Except it isn't from the hallway. It's from inside the wall, behind my headboard. I lie still, waiting for my brain to label it properly. Pipe expansion, neighbor's cabinet, someone dropping a shampoo bottle in the shower. I've lived in enough old places to know the building talks. I can explain most of what it says. But this is too placed, too close. The knocks feel like they're trying to locate something, like they're checking for hollow spots. I press my palm against the drywall. It's cool, smooth, no vibration. I hold my breath just to listen better. The building gives me nothing else. No follow-up, no scrape, no shuffle, no laugh, just the soft wheeze of the heat. My brain tries to ease back down into sleep. Then my phone buzzes again. Another warning. Another little vibration that feels personal now. And when I look at the screen, the time has flipped. 2:14. A longer series of knocks answers it. Not a bang, not frantic. A pattern that makes my throat tighten because it's too organized to be an accident. Knock, knock, pause, knock, pause, knock, knock, knock. It takes me an embarrassing second to realize I'm counting. Okay, I whisper, as if saying it quietly will make it less true. Okay, sure. I'm already sliding out of bed, careful not to wake my partner. The mattress creaks anyway, because everything in this apartment creaks. The bed frame, the floorboards, even the closet door if you breathe at it wrong. I step onto the cold strip of hardwood between the bed and the rug, and the chill goes straight through the soles of my feet. I'm not scared in a movie way. I'm annoyed first, the way you are when something interrupts a fragile little bubble of rest. I'm also, if I'm honest, relieved it's a sound I can point to. A definite thing. You can deal with definite things. You can call someone. You can take a video. You can Google it and find a forum full of people saying same. It's the indefinite stuff I can't handle. The hum you can't locate. The smell no one else notices. The feeling that you've forgotten something important and you don't know what. I walk to the living room in my socks, because if I go barefoot, I'll step on that one staple I can never find. The hallway is a narrow tube of dark, with one dim bulb in the kitchen that always flickers before it warms up. The air changes in the living room, it's cooler, and it smells faintly of the takeout we didn't finish, garlic and oil soaked into cardboard. The knocks don't follow me. That should make me feel better, but it doesn't. It's like a person stopping when you walk into the room. I stand by the thermostat for a moment, staring at the little digital numbers like they're going to explain it. The fan is set to auto. The heat is on. The temperature is the same it was when we went to bed. Nothing helpful. I pull my phone up again, screen brightness turned down so it doesn't hurt. The battery is at 4%. I get a bar of weak Wi-Fi. I could wake Lauren. I could tell her, hey, there were knocks, but not hallway knocks, wall knocks, and watch her go through that face she makes where she's trying to decide if I'm being reasonable or if I'm spiraling again. That's not fair. Lauren doesn't call it spiraling. She calls it getting in your head. She says it gently, the way she says you forgot your keys or you left the stove on low. Maybe I call it spiraling because my mother used that word like a threat. I rub my face and try to reset myself with practicalities. Old building, Boston, February, heat cycling, pipes, neighbors. The apartment is on the third floor of a narrow brick building in Jamaica Plain, on a street where people put bikes in their living rooms and argue politely about compost bins. We moved in 4 months ago, and it's been mostly fine. Thin walls, a radiator that hisses like a cat, a landlord who texts in emojis. The only real thing that's been off is how much the place holds sound. Not loud sound, just sound that feels too intimate. You hear your upstairs neighbors laugh, not the words, just the laugh. You hear someone's alarm through the floor like an insect trapped under glass. You hear the guy next door's blender at 7 in the morning and know, without wanting to, that he's a smoothie person. I'm standing in the living room when the bedroom door opens behind me. Evan, Lauren's voice is thick with sleep, not alarmed. She's the kind of person who wakes like a human being, not like a prey animal. I turn. Lauren Finch, 31, female, steps into the hall in one of my old t-shirts and pajama shorts. Hair pulled into a messy knot that makes her look younger, until you see the tired lines at the corners of her eyes. She rubs her forehead with the heel of her hand and squints at the kitchen clock like it's personally offended her. "What are you doing?" she asks. "Is it morning?" No, I keep my voice low. "Sorry, my phone buzzed, low battery." And you couldn't just ignore it. I half smile because she's right. I was trying to find the charger. She comes closer, and I can feel her mind catching on the part I didn't say. "You're awake. I hesitate, and in that hesitation is my flaw, plain as a stain. I don't like to tell people when something bothers me until it's already gotten big enough to embarrass me. I'll swallow a pebble and then act surprised when it becomes a boulder. "There was a sound," I say finally. Lauren's face changes, not to fear, but to attention. She's a clinician. She hears things for a living. Not sounds, but details in people's voices. "What kind of sound?" "Knocking." "From where?" I point without thinking, back toward the bedroom, toward the wall behind the headboard. She stands very still, listening, like the sound might politely repeat itself for her because she asked. "Nothing." Lauren exhales through her nose. "Okay," she says, which is her version of staying calm. Could be the heat. It didn't sound like the heat. What did it sound like? I imitate it softly, tapping the side of my thigh. The rhythm feels wrong doing it in the open air. In the bedroom, it had weight. Lauren watches my hand, then looks toward the ceiling, as if to measure where the upstairs neighbor's bed might be. Could be someone upstairs bumping something against a wall. Behind our headboard, I hear myself, and the edge in my voice makes me hate my own tone. Lauren raises her eyebrows a little, not judgment. A question. "Do you want me to take this seriously?" "Yes, no, maybe." "I know," I say quickly. "It's probably nothing. It's just, it was right there." She comes to me and touches my arm. Her hand is warm, steady. Do you want to go back to bed? I open my mouth to say yes. And then, from somewhere deeper in the apartment lower, closer to the floor, comes a single knock. Not from the bedroom wall this time. From the living room side wall, the one shared with the next unit. Just one. A test. Lauren's hand tightens on my arm. She didn't jump. She didn't gasp. But her eyes sharpened in a way that tells me she heard exactly what I heard. We look at each other, and in that look, there's a choice forming. A fork, two reasonable paths. We can do the normal thing. Chalk it up to building noise. Turn on the fan for white sound. Go back to bed. And let morning soften it into a story we tell with a laugh over coffee. Or we can do the other thing, still reasonable, still explainable, but heavier with consequence. We can make it a thing. Turn on lights. Pay attention. Knock back. Text the landlord. Go into the hallway and listen. Decide we're not imagining it. Lauren's mouth opens as if she's going to speak, then closes. She glances toward the front door, toward the peephole, the chain lock, the deadbolt. I can feel my heartbeat, not fast, just loud in my own ears. Evan, she says quietly, what do you want to do? And the apartment, as if waiting for our answer, holds perfectly still. The knock comes again at 2:14 on the dot the next night. And this time we're ready for it in the way people are ready for things they don't understand. Badly. We're sitting on the couch with the lights on, a mug of cooling chamomile between us that neither of us has touched. The TV is muted. My phone is plugged in now, finally, stretched awkwardly from the wall like it's on a leash. Lauren has her laptop open on her knees, not searching for answers so much as anchoring herself to something normal. Email, a grocery list, anything. The apartment smells faintly of lemon cleaner because we scrubbed the kitchen after dinner, as if cleanliness might count as control. The first knock lands low and close from the wall behind the TV. A single, careful tap. Lauren looks at me, then at the clock on the stove. 2:14 glows green. Okay, she says. Okay, that's consistent. 3 more knocks follow, spaced like before. Not loud enough to carry to the neighbors, probably. Loud enough to make the picture frames buzz slightly, just enough that I notice, because I'm already watching them. I start recording on my phone. My hand shakes more than I want it to. Could be pipes, I say, because saying it out loud feels like keeping a promise to yesterday's version of myself. Lauren doesn't answer. She leans forward and presses her ear to the wall, palm flat against the paint. She closes her eyes, listening not just to the sound, but to the space around it, the absence that follows. When she straightens, there's a crease between her eyebrows I've only seen a handful of times. Usually at work stories, she can't talk about in detail. That's not heat, she says. That's contact. My stomach drops in a slow, unhelpful way. Another knock, closer to the floor this time. I crouch and put my ear near the baseboard. The wall smells like dust and old wood. I can hear something else now under the knock. A faint scrape, like fabric brushing against something rough. Someone in the wall, I say, before I can stop myself. Lauren's jaw tightens. Evan, I know how that sounds. She holds up a hand, not to stop me, but to pause the spiral. If someone were in the wall, we'd hear more movement, breathing. As if on cue, there's a soft exhale, so faint it could be air shifting, or me wanting it to be. Lauren swallows. Okay, she says again, less steady this time. So we need to figure out what this is, now. The clock ticks to 2:15. The knocking stops. The silence afterward isn't dramatic. It's just empty. The normal apartment sounds seep back in like water. The refrigerator, a distant car, someone laughing on the street. Life continuing with rude confidence. That's it, I ask. For now, Lauren says. She closes her laptop. We can't ignore this. My phone buzzes in my hand. A text from an unknown number. Property manager. Hi, Evan, sorry to text so late. Any chance you're awake? Lauren sees my face change. Who is that? Mark, the landlord. Another message pops up before I can answer. Property manager. Got a weird alert from the building system. Moisture sensor tripped in the south wall of your unit. Have you noticed anything? Lauren exhales sharply. Moisture. I type back with my thumb, suddenly clumsy. We're awake. There's knocking in the walls. 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Property manager, knocking. The south wall. That's the living room wall. The one we're sitting against. Okay, Lauren says, already standing. If there's moisture, that's a problem. Water doesn't wait. This is where my flaw gets teeth. Because the truth is, I hate maintenance issues. I hate being the person who complains, who escalates, who makes a fuss. I've lived in enough places where being easy felt like survival. Don't be the tenant they remember. But the image in my head now isn't about being liked. It's about water traveling invisibly, soaking insulation, rotting studs, turning walls into traps. It's about the news stories where ceilings give way without warning. What if it's a pipe, I say? What if it bursts? Lauren nods. Exactly. We grab shoes, jackets. Lauren snaps on the flashlight on her phone. I text, mark our unit number again, more firmly this time. Evan, there's a repeated knocking sound at 2:14 a.m. coming from the wall. And now a scrape. Please advise. We step into the hallway. The air is cooler out here, and it smells faintly of paint and old carpet. The lights hum overhead. It's quiet in the way apartment buildings are quiet at night, not silent, but private. Lauren knocks on the neighbor's door, the one we share the wall with. Nothing. She knocks again, harder. Hi, sorry, it's your neighbor. We're having a building issue. A light flicks on behind the peephole. After a moment, the door opens a cautious inch. Miguel Alvarez, 27, male, peers out, hair sticking up, eyes bloodshot with sleep. He's wearing gym shorts and a hoodie that says something about a marathon. What's up? He asks, not unfriendly, just exhausted. Sorry, Lauren says. Have you heard any knocking or had any leaks? Miguel frowns. I heard something last night. Thought it was the heat. No leaks though. Behind him, I notice his living room wall. The same wall as ours. There's a damp, darker patch near the baseboard, like a shadow that didn't get the memo about the lights. You might want to check that, I say, pointing. Miguel turns. What the? His foot slides a little when he steps closer. He looks down. That's wet. Lauren's phone buzzes. Mark again. Property manager. On my way. ETA 15. If there's water, shut off the unit valve under your sink now. Lauren and I look at each other. The unit valve is in the cabinet under the kitchen sink. Behind the cleaning supplies we never organize properly. We run back into our apartment. The knock doesn't come again, but the scrape does, faint and continuous now, like something dragging slowly along the inside of the wall. I drop to my knees and yank open the cabinet. Bottles clatter. I twist the valve clockwise. It resists, then gives with a squeal that makes my teeth hurt. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the sound changes. A groan travels through the wall, low and stressed, like a building clearing its throat. The scrape turns into a rush. Water. Definitely water. Evan, Lauren says sharply. The wall. A dark line is blooming along the baseboard now, creeping outward like ink on paper. It reaches the rug and soaks in, spreading fast. This isn't just our unit, I say stupidly. Another text from Mark, urgent now. Property manager. Fire department is en route as precaution. Do not open walls. Evacuate if water increases. Fire department. Evacuate. Words that pull the situation out of the abstract and drop it squarely into consequence. From the hallway, someone shouts. A door slams. A dog barks. And then, distinct over the sound of rushing water, there's a knock from inside the wall again. Only this time, it's frantic. Lauren grabs my arm, hard enough to hurt. That's not pipes, she says. That's someone signaling. My heart starts racing properly now, finally catching up. Fire department's coming, I say. We shouldn't. The knock comes again, faster, closer, right where the wall is already darkening, softening. If someone is trapped in there, if this is a maintenance worker, or a squatter, or someone who made a bad decision and is now drowning between studs. The wall bulges just a little, a subtle give like wet cardboard. Lauren looks at me, eyes bright and terrified and determined. Evan, if we wait. Sirens bloom in the distance, still far, too far. The wall gives another inch, and the knock turns into pounding. Evan, don't. Lauren says it as the wall shudders again, the baseboard bowing outward like it's trying to breathe. Water beads through the paint in tiny dark freckles. The pounding is fast now, panicked, off rhythm. I'm not going to tear it open, I say, even as my hands move toward the coat closet. I just want to see. The geography of the apartment snaps into sharp focus in my head, like a floor plan drawn in fear. Living room on the south wall, shared with Miguel. Kitchen to the right, plumbing stacked there. Bedroom behind us. Hallway to the left, leading to the stairs. Front door dead ahead. The sound is coming from the lower third of the living room wall, about 3 feet from the corner where the TV stand sits. I grab the flashlight from the junk drawer, the one we use for blackouts, and kneel, angling the beam along the baseboard. The drywall is swollen, soft, The light catches a hairline crack I swear wasn't there before. Another pound. The wall flexes inward this time. Fire department said don't open walls, Lauren says, voice tight. She's standing back by the door, shoes on, jacket half-zipped. Ready to leave. Ready to be safe. I know, I say. I know. I press my ear close. The smell hits me first. Wet insulation, metallic and sour. Under it, something human, sweat maybe. Breath. Hello, I say, louder than I mean to. Can you hear me? The pounding stops. For a half second, my brain tries to convince me that's worse. Then a voice comes through the wall. Muffled, hoarse. Help. Lauren makes a sound I've never heard from her before, half gasp, half curse. She rushes forward and crouches beside me. Who is that? She asks the wall, steady, professional. Can you tell us your name? There's a pause. Water trickles audibly now. A thin stream running somewhere inside the wall cavity. Caleb, the voice says. I'm stuck. My heart is trying to climb out of my throat. How are you in there? I ask. I was checking a leak, Caleb says. The access panel jammed. I can't, there's water. A crash interrupts him. Not from the wall, from the hallway. Lauren looks up sharply. That wasn't us. I stand, adrenaline making my knees weak. We open the front door crack. The hallway is chaos now. 2 doors open down the hall. Miguel is barefoot, holding his phone out like it's a weapon. Water is creeping along the carpet seam, darkening it. I heard yelling, he says. And then something fell. Another neighbor, Janice, mid-50s, female, hair in rollers, leans out her door. Is there a flood? Pipe burst, I say. Fire department on the way. As if summoned, a low groan reverberates through the building. The floor vibrates. For one terrible second, it sounds like the building itself is giving up. Janice yelps and slams her door. The groan resolves into a rush, water pressure shifting as something gives elsewhere. Not collapse, rerouting, misdirection. My brain latches onto that relief like a life raft. Lauren pulls me back inside and shuts the door. Focus, she says. We have a person in the wall. Attempt 1. Call it improperly. She dials 911, speakerphone on, kneeling by the wall so Caleb can hear. The operator's voice is calm, practiced. We have units en route, the operator says. Do not attempt rescue yourself. Is the individual conscious? Yes, Lauren says. He's trapped in the wall cavity of a residential building with active water intrusion. Okay, stay with him verbally if you can. Lauren does. She asks Caleb to keep talking, to conserve movement. He's coughing now, wet and shallow. I can't feel my left arm, he says. I glance at the wall. The bulge is worse. The baseboard has pulled away entirely in one spot, nails exposed like teeth. Attempt 2, reduce the water further. Mark said unit valve, I say. But if it's coming from above, I'll go upstairs, Miguel says suddenly from the open doorway. I'll see if anyone's home before I can stop him. He's gone, feet slapping on wet carpet toward the stairs. Lauren looks at me. If this wall fails, I know. I grab towels, shove them against the baseboard, useless but instinctive. The water soaks through immediately. Caleb screams. It's sharp, sudden, and it makes everything in my body lock. What happened? Lauren demands. The wall moved, he gasps. I slipped. There's wiring, sparks. A flash lights the crack in the wall, bright and violent. Lauren yells and scrambles back. The smell of burning plastic fills the room. Okay, I say too loud. Okay, that's electrical, that's. The lights flicker, once, twice. Then they go out. Darkness swallows the apartment, broken only by the flashlight beam shaking in my hand, and the green glow of exit signs bleeding through the hallway door. Caleb is breathing hard now, panicking. It's dark in here, it's dark. I know, Lauren says, voice fierce. Listen to me. Stay still. Don't touch anything. My phone buzzes with a text, the screen lighting my face ghostly. Property manager, FD at front of building. Electric shutoff initiated. Stay clear of walls. Stay clear of walls. The pounding resumes, weaker now, off tempo. The wall sags visibly, the drywall tearing with a wet, ripping sound that makes my stomach flip. Miguel barrels back in, soaked to the knees. Upstairs, unit's empty, he pants. But the ceiling, there's a hole, like someone cut it. Cut it, I echo. Big enough for a person, he says. That's when it clicks. The schedule, the 2:14 knocks. Someone working when the building sleeps, avoiding notice, cutting access panels, getting stuck. Evan, Lauren says quietly. If he came down from upstairs, the cavity runs. Straight through our wall, I finish. The wall groans again. Louder, the bulge turns into a bow. Sirens scream closer now, right outside. Red light pulses through the windows, strobing the room. Help is here, Lauren calls to Caleb. Just hold on. I can't, he says, voice small. I'm slipping. The drywall tears open another inch. A hand thrusts through, fingers scrabbling blindly, skin raw and bleeding. Everything in me surges forward. Lauren grabs my arm. If you pull. I know, I say. I know about collapse, about leverage, about making it worse. But the hand is there, real, human. The floor beneath us shifts. A subtle but undeniable tilt as water saturates the subfloor. There's a crack from somewhere deep in the wall. Structural, final. Behind us, the front door rattles as someone pounds, firefighters shouting, and the wall gives way with a sound like tearing cloth, opening wide enough now that there's no going back. The hole in the wall is not cinematic. It's ugly. Drywall slumps in wet sheets. Fiberglass insulation sags out like cotton candy that's been in someone's mouth. A strip of torn vapor barrier hangs and flutters with each panicked breath coming from inside. Caleb's hand is still there, fingers hooked around a broken stud, knuckles scraped raw. The skin is pale where it's been pressed against something hard too long. Don't pull, Lauren says, and it's not a suggestion. Her voice has the edge she uses at work when someone is about to make a bad decision with their whole body. I'm already on my knees anyway. Flashlight clamped between my teeth, the beam jittering into the cavity. I see him, not fully, not a face straight on, just the side of his head, dark hair plastered to his temple with sweat and dirty water. A shoulder jammed at an angle that makes my own shoulder ache in sympathy. One arm pinned somewhere behind him, the other reaching out, trembling. He's wedged between studs with the narrowness of someone who's been squeezing through spaces he shouldn't. The cavity is tighter than I imagined, filled with wires stapled along wood. A copper pipe sweating in the beam. The pipe isn't burst, not in a clean way. It's cracked at a joint, water spraying in a thin fan that hits the insulation and turns it into a heavy sponge. Every splash is a timer. Caleb, Lauren says, leaning into the opening, but careful not to put weight on the wall. Look at me if you can. Blink twice if you understand me. His head shifts. I catch a flash of his eye. He blinks once, twice. Good, she says. Good, don't thrash. Your arm, your left arm, can you move your fingers? His hand, the one I can see, flexes weakly. The other pinned doesn't respond. A shout from the hallway. Fire department. Anyone inside? The door is still shut. The chain is still on because Lauren snapped it out of reflex when the power went and the door rattled. That's on us. That's on me too. I watched her do it and didn't stop her. Lauren, I say around the flashlight. It comes out muffled. She doesn't look at me, but she reaches back and yanks the chain free one-handed. The door swings open into flashing red light and wet carpet and boots. 2 firefighters surge in, helmets bright in my flashlight beam. One of them immediately scans the room, eyes flicking to the wall opening, the water line on the floor, the soaked baseboard. Back up, the taller one commands. Everyone back. Move away from that wall. We have a person trapped, Lauren says fast. He's inside the cavity. He's conscious, but losing strength. There's water spraying from a cracked joint. Electrical sparks happened before the power went out. The firefighter's gaze sharpens. Name. Caleb, I say. Caleb, can you hear me? The other firefighter calls into the wall, voice loud and anchored. My name's Rios. We're here. Don't move. Caleb makes a sound, half sob, half cough. Where's the source shut off? Rios asks. Under the sink, I say. I closed the unit valve. That may not be enough. The taller firefighter, his name Tape, reads KELLER, keys his radio. Command. We've got a victim trapped in wall cavity. Water intrusion ongoing. Possible compromised structure. Need building main shutoff and ladder company for breach. No sudden saviors. Just procedure fast, practiced, still too slow compared to panic. Keller crouches and shines a stronger light inside. We need room to work, he says. You 2 out of the unit, now. Lauren's jaw clenches. He's slipping. I understand, Keller says, and his tone is not unkind. It's the tone of someone who has decided what has to happen. But if this wall collapses on all of you, we have more patience and less access. Out. I hesitate, stupidly, like leaving means abandoning. Rios catches my eye. We've got him, he says. Help us by giving us space. Lauren backs toward the doorway, hands shaking now that she has permission to be human again. I follow, feet sliding on the wet floor. My socks are soaked. Cold has crept up into my calves. In the hallway, Miguel is pressed against the opposite wall, phone in his hand, face drained. Janice's door is cracked open. Her eyes are huge. "What is it?" she whispers. "Flood," Miguel says, voice thin. "A guy in the wall." Janice makes a sound like a laugh that doesn't know how to be a laugh. Inside the apartment, the firefighters work in tight, efficient bursts. Keller brings in a small pry bar and starts removing drywall in controlled strips, not ripping, not yanking, cutting with a knife, pulling away wet material, exposing studs, wires, the copper pipe with its hissing spray. Each cut reveals more of the cavity, more mess, more danger. Caleb's breathing turns ragged. "It's tight," he gasps. "Stay with me," Rio says. "You're doing good. Don't push." Keller's gloved hands move to Caleb's shoulder, testing how he's wedged. He stops immediately when Caleb cries out. "Pinned," Keller mutters. He looks at the studs. He's stuck on a nail plate or a staple line. We need to widen and relieve pressure. Another firefighter arrives. She, shorter, stocky, carrying a roll of plastic sheeting and a small saw. She lays plastic down like they're in surgery. It's a weird, grounding detail. Someone's still caring about floors while a man is stuck in a wall. The water keeps spraying. A radio squawks. "Main shutoff located. 2 minutes." 2 minutes is an eternity when you can hear someone drowning in shallow air. Caleb starts to cough harder. Wet coughs, like he's aspirated something. His head lolls. Lauren steps forward involuntarily, and I grab her elbow, not hard, just enough to remind her she can't jump into that. "This is what you do," I whisper. "You handle emergencies. You don't." She snaps her gaze to me. Her eyes are glossy. "I'm not handling it," she whispers back. "I'm standing here while he..." A sharp crack interrupts us, not the earlier groan. This is wood, a stud shifting under pressure. Keller freezes. Everyone freezes. For half a second, everything is still except the spray of water and Caleb's wheezing. Keller exhales. "Okay," he says. "Okay, we're committed now." Point of no return. The walls already opened. The structure's already compromised. There is no wait for morning anymore. She wedges a temporary brace, 2x4 jammed between floor and ceiling, tensioned. Rios keeps one hand on Caleb's chest through the opening, monitoring his breath like it's a dial he can adjust with willpower. Keller makes another careful cut. Drywall peels away, revealing the pin. A long metal strap screwed across the studs, probably there to protect wiring. Caleb's jacket is snagged on it. More than that, his shoulder is wedged just below it, the strap biting into him like a clamp. "Caleb," Keller says, voice close and calm. "This is going to hurt. I need you not to fight me." "I can't," Caleb's voice breaks. "I can't feel my arm." "We're going to get you out," Keller says. "But your shoulder's pinned. I'm going to move you. You may hear popping. That's okay. Don't twist." Lauren flinches at that. I do too. No one says the other possibilities out loud. Keller signals she. She positions the saw at the metal strap. The blade winds to life, loud in the small space, vibrating through the floorboards. Lauren's hand clamps around mine without thinking. Her palm is cold and damp. "Turn off," Rio starts, but the saw is already cutting. She keeps it steady, controlled, sparks minimal because the power's out, and the tool is battery-driven. A realistic mercy. The strap gives with a sharp, metallic snap. Caleb screams. His body jerks. The brace shifts. The floor trembles. Keller shouts, "Hold him, hold him." Rios braces Caleb's torso with both arms. Keller reaches in, hands under Caleb's armpits, and pulls not hard, not fast, just firm, incremental, like easing a couch through a doorway. Caleb's pinned arm drags. His face finally turns toward the opening, and I see him fully. Late 20s or early 30s, skin gray with shock, lips cracked, eyes wide and unfocused. There's blood at his shoulder where the strap bit. His left arm hangs wrong, the shoulder line uneven. A wet, ripping sound. Insulation tearing away. Another foot of him slides free. Then the pipe joint fails completely. A sudden, violent surge of water blasts into the cavity, hammering the remaining drywall. The spray becomes a stream. The wall shudders. The brace bows. Keller swears, "Now, now." They pull together, Rios and Keller. One coordinated heave. Caleb's body pops free into the room and collapses onto the plastic sheeting in a heap of limbs and wet clothes. His left arm is limp. His breathing is a harsh rattle, and the wall, relieved of his weight, gives up anyway. It caves inward with a wet crash, drywall and insulation, and splintered wood falling into the cavity like a mouth closing. Water pours through the new gap, flooding the plastic, spilling onto the hardwood. For a second, I can't move. I can only stare at the place where a person had been, now just debris and rushing water. "Move," she barks, and I stumble backward with Lauren, barely missing a chunk of soggy drywall that slaps the floor where we were. Rios is already on Caleb, checking airway, shouting for a backboard. Keller radios again, voice clipped, urgent. Victim extricated, wall collapse, continuing water flow. Need shut off now. From downstairs, a dull thunk reverberates like a valve closing with force. The water stream falters. It coughs. It slows to a heavy drip. Silence returns in uneven pieces. Caleb lies on the plastic, shaking, eyes fluttering. His lips move. Lauren drops to her knees beside him before anyone can stop her, hands hovering, not touching without permission. "Caleb," she says softly. "Hey, you're out, you're out." His eyes find hers. Tears track clean lines through grime on his face. "I didn't," he whispers. "I didn't mean." His voice breaks into a cough that turns into a sob. The firefighters load him onto the board, strap him down. As they lift, his left shoulder shifts and he cries out again, pain cutting through the adrenaline haze like a blade. Cost, no neat rescue, no clean ending, just the ugly math of tissue and bone. As they carry him out, Keller glances at us. "You did the right thing by calling," he says, and it sounds like something he tells people to keep them from unraveling later. Lauren doesn't answer. She's staring at the torn wall, at the cavity that runs dark and narrow between studs, at the place where the knocks came from. In the wreckage, my phone, still recording, sits on the floor, screen spattered with water. The timestamp glows on the video, 2:14 a.m., and in the drip of the dying leak, I can still hear the echo of that first measured pattern. Like a metronome, I'll never stop anticipating. The apartment smells like a wet hardware store. That's the first thing that hits me when we're allowed back in hours later, after the water's off, after the firefighters have gone, after a city inspector with tired eyes, and a clipboard has taped a red notice to our door that says unsafe to occupy, temporarily in block letters that don't feel temporary at all. Wet wood, dust, burnt plastic, lemon cleaner still trying. It's nearly morning. The sky outside the blinds has gone that washed out gray that makes everything look unfinished. Our living room is unrecognizable. Plastic sheeting wrinkled and torn, insulation clumped like seaweed, the wall a ragged mouth opening into darkness. You can see straight through to the studs now, to the copper pipe that drips at a careful, guilty pace into a bucket. Someone set there without asking us. Lauren stands in the doorway with her arms folded tight across her chest, like she's holding herself together. She hasn't said much since the paramedics loaded Caleb into the ambulance. She rode with him to the hospital while I gave statements, short ones, factual ones, the kind that feel safer because they don't ask you to describe how your hands shook. Caleb survived the night. That's the headline. Dislocated shoulder, nerve damage they're not ready to predict yet, a mild case of aspiration pneumonia. He'll be in the hospital for a few days, maybe longer. I know this because Lauren told me in the car, voice flat, eyes on the road. He kept apologizing, she said, like that explained anything. The inspector clears his throat. You folks can grab essentials, he says, gesturing vaguely. But you're not staying here tonight or tomorrow. Landlords arranging alternative housing. Alternative housing. It sounds like a euphemism for somewhere you don't want to be. I walk carefully across the warped hardwood to the bedroom. The headboard wall is intact, but I can't look at it the same way. It feels thinner now, like a suggestion instead of a boundary. I grab clothes without much thought. My hands keep expecting resistance, something pulling back from the wall, some last-minute knock. But there's only silence and the drip in the living room. On the nightstand, my phone sits where I dropped it. The battery is full. I don't remember plugging it in. I open the video I recorded. I don't know why. Maybe to make it real again, to prove to myself that I didn't invent it. The audio is a mess of rushing water and muffled voices, but at the start, clear as anything, I hear the knocks. Measured, intentional. Lauren watches from the doorway. You don't have to listen to that, she says. I know. I stop the video anyway. Downstairs, Miguel is sitting on the stoop in a blanket someone gave him, shoes dangling from one hand. He looks up when we come out. They say my place is a mess, he says, a weak attempt at humor. Like yours. Janice stands a few feet away, talking animatedly to a friend on her phone. Yes, inside the wall, she's saying. I told you this building was strange. Miguel lowers his voice. They took him away fast, he says. You think he was, you know. I know what he means. Unauthorized trespassing. Worse. I don't know, I say, and it's the truth. We load our bags into the back of a rideshare because our car is blocked in by emergency vehicles. The driver doesn't ask questions. He just wrinkles his nose at the damp smell and turns the radio up a little too loud. The hotel the landlord books us into is aggressively normal. Beige walls, overly clean carpet, a lobby that smells like coffee and disinfectant. The clerk smiles like nothing in the world has ever gone wrong at 2:14 a.m. In the room, Lauren sits on the edge of the bed and takes off her shoes. Her hands are still shaking. She presses them together, palms flat, like she's trying to warm them. I keep thinking about his arm, she says suddenly. The way it moved. I sit beside her. The mattress sinks too much in the middle. You didn't cause that. I know, she says, then quieter. I know that. But knowing it doesn't stop the image. Neither does sleep. When it finally comes, it's shallow and full of interruptions, sirens outside, doors slamming in the hallway, the ice machine roaring to life at the worst possible moment. I wake up convinced I've heard it again, heart racing, only to realize it's just the elevator dinging. Morning brings logistics, insurance calls, emails from Mark the landlord, full of apologies and exclamation points, and phrases like working closely with the city. A voicemail from a detective who wants to clarify a few details about access points and timelines. Lauren answers that call. I listen to her side of it, to the way she stays precise, grounded. She gives times. She gives locations. She doesn't speculate. When she hangs up, she rubs her face. They found tools in the upstairs ceiling, she says. Cut panels. Looks like he'd been going in and out for weeks. Why'd I ask? She shrugs. They're still figuring that out. That's the thing that sticks with me. The weeks. The idea that while we were cooking dinner, while Lauren was on her laptop, and I was half watching something forgettable, there was a man in the walls, measuring time, waiting for quiet, knocking softly, maybe to check if anyone was awake. The official story comes together over the next few days. Caleb wasn't a maintenance worker. He wasn't authorized. He'd done some contracting work in the past, enough to know where to cut, where to move. He claimed he was trying to fix a leak he'd noticed earlier, trying to prevent damage. The building's insurer disputes that. The landlord's lawyer phrases everything carefully. Caleb doesn't press charges. Neither do we. It all slides into a gray zone of liability and intent that no one seems eager to stare at too long. We don't move back into the apartment. Mark offers a different unit in the building once repairs are done. Lauren shakes her head without hesitation. I back her up before my instinct to be agreeable can kick in. We find a new place a month later, newer construction, thicker walls. The first night there, I lie awake cataloging sounds like a hobby. The hum of the fridge, the distant traffic, the building settling. When 2:14 comes and goes without incident, I don't feel relief so much as suspicion. Lauren starts sleeping through the night again before I do. Sometimes, when she's brushing her teeth, she catches me standing too close to the wall, listening. She doesn't comment. She just reaches out and rests her hand on my back, grounding me. We don't talk about Caleb much. When we do, it's in the past tense with facts. He's in physical therapy. His arm is improving slowly. He moved back in with his sister. Life fills back in around the hole. But every so often, when a hotel room is too quiet, when a new apartment creaks in an unfamiliar way, I think about the timing, about how precise it was, how human. And once, months later, when we're visiting a friend in another old building, I hear a knock from inside a wall, just one, probably a pipe, definitely explainable. My body reacts before my brain can catch up. I check the time on my phone. It isn't 2:14. I still don't relax. That's tonight's story. If it gives you chills, make sure to like, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and tap the bell so you never miss what's coming next. And if you're still brave enough, there are more dark tales waiting for you right here on the channel. Go watch another if you dare.